Welcome to episode 4 of The Song Remains the Same Making of series. If this is your first episode, I suggest you go back and watch the previous installments for the insider scoop to make the most out of the Zeppelin movie and soundtrack saga. This is a table of contents for this program. First off, I will provide a comparison of the official release against the existing bootlegs to challenge the urban legend surrounding the album's concert authenticity. Next, we'll discuss the packaging, original release date, and last, I will go over the same details for the 2007 and 2018 remasters. So get yourself comfortable with your favorite drink or meal and enjoy this deep dive into one of the most anticipated parts of this documentary series. And you know me, I'm all about context. The weekend of July 27th through the 29th was quite interesting because of a massive rock festival held in New York. More specifically, Watkins Glen, New York, at the Watkins Glen International Racetrack. Summer Jam at Watkins Glen remains one of the biggest pop festivals, and brother to Woodstock, with numbers of 600,000 people in attendance. The music trifecta of the Allman Brothers Band, the band, and the Grateful Dead created a powerful and memorable vibration that entertained the concertgoers. Promoter Bill Graham provided his logistics expertise through lighting, a stage, and just about all the sound system wattage available. Does that stage look familiar? Well, that's the same fabric from Kezar Stadium, June 1973. Despite the news on Woodstock 2.0, it didn't steal the thunder from Madison Square Garden and the Zeppelin taking over New York City, which really puts into perspective just how popular the band was, both musically and financially. An August 1973 article talked about this and featured some quotes by Jimmy Page. I found this one to be quite poetic and really captures the essence of both the film and soundtrack. The only annoying thing is when you really hit on some good things, they're lost in time. It goes into the other dimension. You've lost it. They only come once and then they're gone. But then again, it's exciting because you know that's something gone, but then something new is going to come. Page also said, I think I'm just learning how to play the guitar. Sometimes when I'm on stage, I only get a flash of what my potential really is. A profound statement because the stage does carry a special set of circumstances that no matter how much practice you do at home, there's a chemical reaction within that transforms technique in a way that is only possible through the audience and performer connection. What Jimmy tapped into in New York was the culmination of mind and body made one musical energy through his guitar, where a deep lyrical language turned the strings into something of a physical graffiti presence in the houses of the holy. And as a result, the whole band was fine-tuned in the supreme art form, where pre-show jitters and anxiety morph into confidence in the pleasures of the unknown. Their stage configuration certainly helped. Those mirrors contained energy, where the music could bounce back and jump into the crowd. I will discuss all 9 songs from the original 1976 release, and what better way to start than with a quote by engineer Eddie Kramer on the Madison Square Garden shows. This was towards the end of their tour, and Robert's voice was not exactly perfect, and I think they had to go back and punch in a couple of phrases here and there, but I thought the performance was bloody good. With this being said, I want to set the record straight. There are no re-recorded guitar solos, nor long instrumental overdubs. Most cuts and edits revolve around Robert Plant, from small bits of microscopic words taken from one night pasted into another, to alleged studio overdubs in the way of brief punch-ins. But again, what you hear is live Robert Plant at Madison Square Garden. Don't believe the haters who try to bring this album down. Now you may be wondering, were these edits necessary? Absolutely. Like I mentioned on episode 3, his 1973 voice was put under a lot of stress throughout the year. The old high range from 1970 was gone, yet he gained more wisdom in his phrasing. It was a blessing in disguise to find a much more balanced approach to performing and restraint. Some of the early day Zeppelin versions can sometimes be too crowded in the vocal department. I prefer Robert's raspy high notes of 1973, think Janis Joplin, because they work in favor of the group's sound and arrangements. Think of Robert's old voice as a drummer playing crazy fills all the time. Yeah, it's virtuoso level stuff, but the effect may be tiring on the ears. Even Robert Plant has criticized himself for this in retrospect. Because The Song Remains the Same was a project they've invested big money in, and it was to be a swan song release, much effort was put into not just releasing a concert, but an experience. All the minor vocal edits were done in favor of the listening experience. Now regarding the alleged vocal overdubs, which are noticeable, I believe these were recorded in the studio, as they sound like Robert's nasal tone from the present time period. It sounds like his late 1975, early 1976 voice, which we can hear in tracks like For Your Life, Hot's On For Nowhere, and Page and Plant's guest appearance with Bad Company in May 1976. So just to be clear, the band did not pull a Kiss Alive or Thin Lizzy Live and Dangerous, where many parts were re-recorded. No. What you hear is a Led Zeppelin concert performance. The playing is as real as it gets. For the critics and haters who insist the song remains the same, is not a live album because it has many cuts, that is simply not true. It's a lie, and I hope this video puts an end to this nonsense. The edits were made for aesthetic reasons, in the same way Frank Zappa constructed his live recordings and studio releases. From his You Can Do That on Stage series to his guitar solo compilations, Zappa had surgeon-level precision to make the cuts work in favor of the product. So Frank Zappa gets a pass, but Jimmy Page, the producer, doesn't. That's a rock and roll double standard. So for the Song Remains the Same soundtrack analysis, I will use both the official release and the existing bootleg recordings from Madison Square Garden 1973 shows Friday, July 27th, Saturday, July 28th, and Sunday, July 29th. Creating the best versions of each song from 3 nights worth of material was quite the challenge. Now the July 27th bootleg remains incomplete, as the available material starts off on the Rain song all the way through the ocean, and as you'll see, this was the main recording source for both the film and soundtrack. With almost every show from their 1973 North American tour recorded, either soundboard or audience tapes, it's quite the anomaly July 27th remains incomplete, thus limiting any further analysis outside of the official release. As you know, I've made concert retrospectives here on the channel, providing a detailed musical analysis of their performances. It comes in handy for this research project, but of course, I have a secret weapon that also helped me big time, and I mean big time. I want to personally thank Eddie Edwards, PhD in Led Zeppelin studies and author of the Garden tapes. If you've never seen this website, you should. You can find the link in the description below. Ever since I discovered the site in my early 20s, I couldn't believe it, and back then I had nobody to share this with. Not even my former Zeppelin tribute bandmates, who would either look at me like I was crazy or thought I was crazy. Eddie Edwards has a comprehensive thesis on all the official Led Zeppelin live albums, where he deconstructs every single edit with an obsessive compulsive attention to detail. Eddie is brilliant, and I emailed him like a year ago to get to know him, but didn't get a reply. If anyone knows Eddie Edwards, please share this episode and tell him, listen to this, Eddie. I can't thank him enough for his work, as it has inspired me to start this channel in the first place. I based some of my audio analysis on his findings for The Song Remains the Same, but I still recommend checking out his website as he goes deeper, way deeper into the expanded CD and DVD editions where insanely meticulous edits can be found. Now, word of advice, you may want to listen to this audio summary more than once, as there is a lot of information to process. Okay, let's get started. Track 1, Rock and Roll, is quite an interesting mix using parts from all 3 nights to create the final version. It's probably the most edited song on the album, and you'll see what I mean. To think they had to mime this performance at Shepperton Studios is mind-blowing, because not only did they have to remember what they did back in 1973, but also taken from different nights. Talk about method acting. Bonzo's opening line of All Right Let's Go comes from July 27th, as the band is about to play the first of 3 nights at the Garden. Jimmy's iconic guitar solo and Bonham's thunderous drums at the end were taken from the 28th and 27th respectively.
Hey!
Track 2, Celebration Day. The instrumental was taken from the second night, July 28th, but the famous guitar solo at the end comes from July 29th, with no edits whatsoever. It was a very inspired lead guitar run by Jimmy Page. Now check out the alleged vocal overdubs on the verse and chorus. It sounds to me like Robert Plant on Hot Song for Nowhere, the voice from Presence.
Face is cracked from smiling, all the tears that she's been hiding, and she wonders pretty soon. Her face is cracked from smiling, all the tears that she's been hiding, and she wonders pretty soon. Everybody's gonna know. Her face is cracked from smiling, all the tears that she's been hiding, and she wonders pretty soon. Everybody's
Track 3, The Song Remains the Same, has no edits and was taken from the second night, July 28th, which again proves my theory that the Houses of the Holy material worked wonders on stage. The way they play the new songs on their set reflects how little time it took them to perfect these concert versions. Track 4, The Rain Song, like its sister song from Houses, it was also taken from the second night, July 28th, with a minor cut on the heavy section which alters the chord buildup. Other than that, it remains the same. Pun superintended, but it's a good pun because it relates to both the studio and live album. Oh yes, the nearly 27-minute epic, Dazed and Confused, takes up the entire second side of the original vinyl release. The album version was primarily taken from the first night, July 27th, with microscopic edits from the other shows. Everything else is Led Zeppelin at their finest. Progressive rock meets acid jazz meets funk. Brace yourselves, here we go.
Quit you, baby, but you give me
Track 1, No Quarter, may be a surprise for some. The album used both July 27th for the first half and July 28th for the rest. In case you're wondering, Jimmy Page's famous guitar solo here was played on the 28th, as is. No cuts, no edits. No overdubbing, just pure Les Paul badassery. Page was probably in a supreme state of flow, as he has been quoted saying he did not sleep for 5 days by the time they played their first of 3 shows at Madison Square Garden. So this means he didn't sleep since July 22nd, just 1 day before they rocked Baltimore's Civic Center. So back to No Quarter. A small hint for you guitar players out there who want to play this song. Jimmy's wah-wah pedal seems to be left at the middle position when he's soloing, thus the special texture we hear. Maybe this was the result of someone from the film crew stepping on it, or Page forgetting to switch it off. Whatever the case, it makes this guitar run just perfect. Stairway to Heaven begins with Robert's famous Song of Hope bit, but this was of course edited from the original message. Check it out.
The things are beginning to vibe up a bit. Now listen, we're going to get one thing straight. Stop acting like kids there, right? Just cooling a little bit. I think this is a song of I think this is a song of hope, and it is a very quiet song, so we're sure.
The song remains pretty much the same outside of a small overdub that is quite noticeable. Everything else was taken from July 27th, including Jimmy's epic guitar solo, with again, no overdubs nor cuts. After hearing all of his Stairway to Heaven solos from this tour, it's clear to me that he kept a mental journal of his best phrasing ideas since May 1973, because this take in New York City seems to be a greatest hits compilation. Page was such a cerebral musician. This is a testament to his skill and thought process. Moby Dick was mostly taken from the second night, July 28th, where Robert Plant introduced his friend with a rather eloquent style, as opposed to what we hear on the album. Now, John Bonham's drum solo that evening lasted for almost half an hour, clocking in at 28 minutes. That's 2 minutes longer than Dazed and Confused. His drumming showcase was trimmed down to 12 minutes and 47 seconds on the final release, making this quite the editing job to create a proper summary, if you may, of what his solo piece was all about. I used the bootleg recording as reference and found 11 cuts. It was a very meticulous process to create a dynamic piece, removing the sections where Bonham shifted gears to regain precious vital energy, or as John Anderson would say, total mass retain. The stuff Jimmy Page, the producer, left out makes sense, but by no means are these boring. Not at all. They are just transitional segments and build-ups. Page used the best moments approach, a la Bonzo's Montreux from Coda. I've learned to further expand on my deep appreciation for Bonzo's drum solos when performing my concert retrospectives that require me to come up with a summary of his percussive runs. You learn how to spot the key moments. Here's a brief summary of every cut and transition. Track 2, Whole Lotta Love. Outside of minor edits and some vocal texture overdubs treated with delay units, this was taken from the first night, July 27th. The space funk and boogie section have no cuts whatsoever. This is 100% faithful to the stuff they played that Friday evening. Led Zeppelin were at the top of the world and had the chops to back it up.
New York, good night.
Led Zeppelin's second year of the decade away from the stage was not good for their concert business, but just like 1974, they found good spirits to be productive. Presence was released on May 31st, 1976, selling almost 100,000 units more than Wings at the Speed of Sound, but was outsold by AC/DC's High Voltage, Kansas Left Overture, ugh, I hate that album name, Aerosmith Rocks, and Steve Miller Band's Fly Like an Eagle. Now there was something quite interesting about 1976, which I talked about on the Making of Presence episode 2. There were something like 100 live albums released that year, and you can guess who was the artist who struck gold first and sent an adrenaline shot throughout the industry. That was of course Peter Frampton with his omnipresent Comes Alive, becoming the 5th best-selling album of 1976. While live albums often had a bad reputation of them being contractual obligations or a sign of a declining artist, the Frampton effect was powerful, and it switched the conversation into the wonders of live renditions. April 1976 continued the concert momentum with both Elton John and Bob Seger's live documents. By September you had Rush with All the World's a Stage, Bob Dylan's Hard Rain, and Leonard Skinner's One More from the Road. The time was right to deliver an official sonic voyage into the world of a Led Zeppelin concert, and they had the upper hand because they had a special legal loophole with Atlantic Records. Check this out. Because the movie featured numbers from previous albums released during their Atlantic tenure, there could be some final word by Ahmet Ertegun and his team, but Zeppelin's contract with Atlantic Records expired back in October 1973, excluding any soundtracks ever done by the band. Not only could they profit from the movie, but release a live album without sharing label credit with Atlantic. Zeppelin's idea to have a soundtrack from a film was brilliant. It jumped over any standard live album definitions, and once again, Led Zeppelin played the game on their terms. This is why BBC Sessions and How the West Was Won have the Atlantic stamp on. They were not soundtracks for a movie. So there were great financial reasons to release a movie and album, as present sales figures paled in comparison to Physical Graffiti. They would recoup their movie investment many times over. I'm not saying this is why they did it, but as a case study, you can connect the dots. Who wouldn't pass the opportunity of making big bucks? The song remains the same and was Swan Song Records' 9th release since Bad Company's debut in 1974, and both Led Zeppelin and the label's second double album after Physical Graffiti. Album design duties were handled by Hypnosis on what was their third Led Zeppelin project after Houses of the Holy and Presence. Designer George Hardy was appointed the task of making the wealthy rockstar clients happy. Hardy was of course an old character in the Zeppelin story, working on their debut, so Jimmy Page knew him very well, and because Hardy was paid an average fee back in 1968, I'm sure he expected a bigger paycheck this time. Like I mentioned on episode 2 of this series, Hardy's main design was based on the old Scala Theatre in Brixton Hill in South London. You can see how the building inspired the visuals. Additional stylings of the nearby Ritzy Theatre and British Art Deco cinemas played a part in the final version. The main building was also used on the movie poster. Now what's even more fascinating are the cutout sections that were added on the album's front and back cover. They suggest an image based on an Art Deco cinema, featuring Led Zeppelin's name on the marquee. A 3-4 and front perspectives work as two paintings of the same scene. Too bad the special editions of the album do not include the original image to get the full picture. The soundtrack's album cover brings back the concept of modernity versus tradition, similar to the idea from Untitled. We see an abandoned cinema with echoes of a functioning theater in the back. An existential dilemma courtesy of Hypnosis, which works great with the concept of music being the sole conductor in our lives. The song remains the same. Now, possible inspirations for the album cover may come from a 1972 movie poster for Pink Floyd's Live at Pompeii and Santana's legendary Lotus, with the latter being a triple vinyl live album recorded in the same month as Led Zeppelin's New York project, July 1973. Lotus was captured on July 3rd and 4th in Osaka, Japan, and it's considered by many to be Carlos Santana's guitar prime, never mind the group interplay really pushing the limits of their abilities. Talking about black album covers for live releases, we can also throw in ELP 1974 and Humble Pie's Rocking the Fillmore. Now cinema-wise, we can think of Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player, a studio album by Elton John released in January 1973. Maybe Hypnosis was inspired by this one as well. Okay, back to the song remains the same. Front cover has the old movie theater by day, while the back shows it by night, hosting an event, judging by the lights inside the building. Now let's take a look at the original booklet. Page 1 features 5 photographs. 2 of them are taken from the movie with Peter Grant's pic used for the promotional lobby cards. The rest are outtakes. There's a front picture of the gangster's car, the shooter's angle, and a picture of Zeppelin's tour manager Richard Cole holding a gun. Page 2 features 4 shots of John Paul Jones taken from the movie. Jones's onstage pic was used on the promotional lobby cards as well. Now, interesting to note how the Alexandra Palace shots were color treated in post-production for the film based on this image. Page 3 features John Bonham's movie shots, except one outtake at the farm and a second photograph at Santa Pot's Raceway just before driving at full speed. Page 4 is Robert Plant with just one shot from the movie next to his wife Maureen. This image was used for one of the lobby cards. The rest finds Plant at Raglan Castle wearing a different coat from the one on the film. This seems to match the 2 existing behind the scenes photographs at this location. We can also see Robert and his horse at Aberdowie. Last pick is Robert Plant on stage wearing a 1975 clothing style, which could either be Madison Square Garden on February 3rd, and this would make sense as there is a famous Zeppelin poster with a shot of Robert from this show. It can also be Montreal on February 6th, where several photographs were taken. Page 5 has 3 stills from the movie. We see a shot of New York City right before Stairway and Jimmy's solo from the same track. The other one comes from the Rain song. Page 6 is all about Jimmy Page, with one movie still and a shot of him with a double neck guitar that could have been taken on any date from the 1973 tour or Shepperton Studios 1974. Now there's a pic of Jimmy close to Bonham's drum riser, which means this was 1975. Based on the shirt and pants combination, this could either be January 31st in Detroit, February 3rd in New York, February 6th in Montreal, or March 24th in Los Angeles. Now the last photo finds Jimmy in a light and shade setting with his Les Paul up in the air. A close inspection reveals he's wearing his Moon and Stars pants, but also a black shirt, and this combination just didn't happen on the 1975 tour. So, my gut feeling tells me this was a promotional shot at Shepperton Studios. I could be wrong, and I will be more than happy if you guys can help me solve this mystery. Let me know your thoughts on the comment section. The album's gatefold includes a brief essay by rock journalist Cameron Crowe, who was sent by Rolling Stone magazine to interview Led Zeppelin on their 1975 tour. His career was on the rise ever since he did a piece on the Allman Brothers Band, published on December 6, 1973, issue number 149. This was the basis, of course, for Crowe's movie Almost Famous, as he was 16 years old at the time of writing this authentic piece of rock and roll adventures. By 1976, he'd interviewed both David Bowie and Peter Frampton. Rolling Stone magazine was very happy with his public relations skills. He usually covered bands that hated the magazine. To gain their trust was a remarkable achievement. A professional at his craft, he was chosen by Led Zeppelin and delivered a thoughtful text dated September 24, 1976. He wrote a second version almost triple in size for the 2007 remaster edition. September 24, 1976 was the day Swan Song Records announced a live album to their long-awaited film to be premiered in late October. The song remains the same outsold presence by 1 million copies, ranking number 17th on the best-selling records of 1976. An Argentinian pressing of the song Remains the Same was released in 1977 with the album and song titles in Spanish. Contrary to movie posters in Latin America and their own Argentinian pressing of Houses of the Holy showing La Canción es la misma, this version holds the name of La Canción sigue siendo la misma. Check out the song titles: Rock and Roll, Día de Celebración, La Canción sigue siendo la misma, La Canción de la Lluvia, Asombrado y Confundido, Sin un Cobre, which is a hilarious translation of No Quarter, as it should have been Sin Cuartel, as cuartel is related to a military location. Sin un Cobre refers to a missing quarter, as in a coin. Spanish can be a tricky language for translations. Next songs, Escalera al Cielo, Moby Dick, and Un Montón de Amor. Again, Hoarded Love has so many possible equivalents in Spanish, you can't help to laugh at these. It can be muchísimo amor, mucho amor, una gran cantidad de amor, and then it can get into Spanish slang and profanity, which I'm not gonna feature here in the video. These vinyl series were done by Argentinian label Music Hall as a part of their Super Lujo Especial series. Now check out their translation for Led Zeppelin 2. They put mucho amor. Let's go further down this rabbit hole. Physical Graffiti features a phonetic translation of Swan Song, and then there's the song titles. Pastel de Crema, El Vagabundo, which is by no means a proper translation for the rover, but a lazy person. We have Aureola de los Cabellos Castaños, which is a very creative take on Brunet R. But the worst offender is Campesina Negra, which translates into African American hillbilly woman. A horrible, horrible translation that failed to understand what the Black Country region is in England. This translation is an embarrassment. Just imagine these guys translating the name Black Country Communion. Anyway, back to the song Remains the Same. Besides the vinyl, 2 cassette and 8-track formats, the album saw its compact disc release in 1987 through the famous Barry Diamond Masters. Because the original artwork copy would look too small on the CD cover, they added the soundtrack from the film copy at the bottom. This version was kept in production all the way through 1990. Now, when Jimmy Page went back to remaster Zeppelin's catalog with Sterling Sound's own George Marino for the box sets and subsequent release of their studio albums in 1994, the song Remains the Same was left out because it was a live album, of course. But here's where the story gets interesting. It was later released with a digitally remastered sticker as a Japanese import in 1997, 2002, and a 2003 vinyl replica CD edition. Album credits here feature the original 1976 display including mastered at Sterling Sound. What's bizarre is the fact that there's no remastering credits, meaning no direct evidence that George Marino himself worked on this album. And then in 2007, we the fans got treated to an expanded edition of The Song Remains the Same. I don't remember the release being heavily promoted in my country, but Zeppelin forums were going crazy, adding the 2007 reunion plans, and it was definitely a good year to be a Zeppelin fan. I bought the 2-disc DVD edition first because it was time to update and replace my now 5-year-old VHS copy. Where I didn't buy the 1999 version out of not having real extras, I was sold immediately on this new release and couldn't walk fast enough back home to watch the second disc and songs I only dreamed existed on film. I was so excited about this release that I bought an extra copy and gave it to my best friend as an early Christmas gift just because. Then of course, it was time to use my precious call center paycheck money to get a 2-CD soundtrack set. Despite me already having the Madison Square Garden bootlegs via LimeWire, as I refused to cater to greedy bootleg salesmen in my country, I was always ready for an official Led Zeppelin release. It was a shut up and take my money moment. I had to have this album. Then I got home and noticed the track listing. Everything was there except Thank You from July 29th and The Ocean right after the Rain song, which was an odd choice considering The Ocean was the encore on the first 2 nights at the Garden. But this made sense because of CD time constraints, and also, it's just hard to beat Whole Lotta Love as the soundtrack's finale. So I sat down and listened to the whole thing. Little that I knew, I was in for a journey. First off, I noticed a compression being a bit too harsh, which did not translate well when I cranked up the speakers. The mix though felt beefier than the original, as they used modern production techniques to augment the low end and expand the stereo image, with great use of reverb, delay, and other audio engineering tools. The 2007 mix was done by Kevin Shirley, who was the same guy responsible for engineering and mixing of How the West Was Won. There's a lot of production values from this 2003 live album in the new version of The Song Remains the Same. Remastering duties were done by Bob Ludwig of Led Zeppelin II Ludwig Hotmaster fame. You know, the record goes for almost $500 now. I need to get a copy of that. Also noticeable on the album is the use of some slight delay effects on the guitars. Despite the compression, it was Led Zeppelin, so I tried to make the most out of it. I was excited to finally have Black Dog and Since I've Been Loving You on an actual album, as I had to rip them from my 2003 DVD copy just to have them on my MP3 player. The unreleased songs were fascinating, although I was never a fan of live Misty Mountain Hop past 1971. Let's take a look at the edits on the 2007 release. Black Dog, pretty much the movie version that was taken from the third night, July 29th. Fun fact about this song is that both film and soundtrack cut 2 minutes from the original song, going straight into the guitar solo. Jimmy Page was asked about this in recent years and said he didn't notice it back then, but he acknowledged the error, so to speak. Over the Hills and Far Away was mostly taken from the second night, July 28th, with some brief vocal edits extracted from July 29th. Misty Mountain Hop, The Ocean, and Since I've Been Loving You continue the tradition of Jimmy Page, the meticulous producer, creating unique versions with the advancements of technology and Pro Tools.
I'm really the best of food. Oh, yeah. Rain, don't you see them falling? I'm out of the glass, out of my front door.
Okay, now let's talk about Dazed and Confused. The 2007 version was 3 minutes and 58 seconds longer than the original 1976 release, clocking at 29 minutes and 18 seconds, which is similar to the actual movie version. Here's an audio summary of all the bits and pieces from it.
You baby, say what you will. I still wanna make love to you, little girl. I'm trying to quit you, baby, but you give me mesmerized. I'm trying to quit you, baby, but you give me mesmerized. plays electric guitar.
Holy Love went through the surgeon's knife, and there's a couple of strange tempo variations. A minute and 26 seconds worth of funk jamming was cut from the 2007 version, which may have added flow but sacrificed a good chunk of band chemistry, including Jumble Jones's magical bass lines and genius transition into the rapid groove theremin section. And now one of the most controversial edits ever found on a live album re-release. A sad day for Led Zeppelin fans who grew up with the original release. Remember No Quarter's epic solo, Jimmy Page's career-defining lead guitar passages? Well, 1 minute and 26 seconds were removed, deleted, gone. Yes, that's a minute and a half of exquisite Les Paul brilliance, cut from the 2007 release. I still remember my first reaction to this. I was like,
No, God! God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
The thought of casual and newer Zeppelin fans experiencing this version for the first time was disturbing. I had a mourning period over this that lasted many years. Now, this doesn't mean it's sonically less of a version than the original, because it sounds great, but when you alter history in changing a perfectly constructed guitar solo, it feels like altering family photographs or rewriting classic literature. I have my theories on why Jimmy Page, the producer, agreed to do this, but first, let's check the audio summary. So why did Page make this infamous cut? I think he wanted to provide a different angle to the remastered version of the album, thus making the 1976 version much more valuable for collectors. The cut does make the guitar solo reach its climax in a much more accessible way to those casual Zeppelin fans that have zero patience for long jams. Those customers that paid top dollar for box sets but remain greatest hits people. Now there's also the CD timing issue of trying to fit everything on disc 1, thus making the executive decision a necessity. Because Heartbreaker was added on disc 2, something had to go and No Quarter paid the price. What do you guys think about it? I want to read your impressions on the comment section below. Like How the West Was Won, the song remains the same, so a 2018 remaster in both vinyl and CD formats. While many fans, myself included, hope to get new unreleased tracks from the other nights at Madison Square Garden, what we got was underwhelming in that regard, but it was amazing in the sense that it fixed the compression and loudness wars issues from the 2007 release. The 2018 remaster avoids ear fatigue. You can turn up the volume and really enjoy this concert. It's worth purchasing for that sole reason. The packaging is also much better. The original 2007 Digipack is not very strong for everyday listens in your car or Discman. The pressure to get this out to coincide with Led Zeppelin's reunion show back in 2007 probably played a part in this matter. As you can see, mine looks like crap because I played this one a lot and took it on many trips. There was of course the 2007 collector's edition with many visual reproductions of original promotional materials plus a collectible t-shirt. The 2018 versions have a textured album cover, better quality control on the materials, and a shiny title. Let's take a look at the artwork for both releases. The 2007 edition added new photographs on the inside, all which are stills from the movie. The 2018 edition featured a very cool stage shot of the band playing what seems to be the ocean, based on Jimmy raising his Les Paul in the air as if he's concluding the performance. Next we see some stills from the movie and Jumble Jones's promotional shot. Now the other panel has a surprising picture taken at Shepperton Studios, as if to remind everyone some parts of the movie were actually shot at a soundstage. The booklet itself was pretty much the same as the 2007 version, with Cameron Crowe's essay dated August 2007. The 2007 Digipack case had a better design for booklet storage. The 2018 version, you run the risk of ripping the cardboard while trying to get it out. The back cover in the 2007 version is easier to read, but the margins on the 2018 release look tidier. Everything looks more organized. A soundtrack for an ambitious film that cemented Led Zeppelin's legacy and place in pop culture. Whether you prefer the original 1976 release or the updated sonic dimensions of the latest remaster is up to you. But the deep appreciation and admiration for the greatest band of the 70s remains the same. Now you know the story behind the music. Now you know why Madison Square Garden witnessed 3 nights of rock and roll glory. A Led Zeppelin swan song before the mid-70s tide changed their course forever. Before drum risers and lasers, there was 1973, the band's instrumental prime and Robert Plant's finest hour, coming back from serious vocal challenges. The soundtrack from the film created a movie within a movie, in concert and beyond, like everything they did. A live album that captured lightning in a bottle, cosmic energy in tape, the soundtrack of our lives, and the images we create. And maybe if reality gets stranger every day, there's always the perfect escape. A double album dose of Led Zeppelin, where the old cinema is always open for us, hardcore fans, the Zeppelin insiders. Highlight reels of dreams, places we needed to go, and sing along, where everything that's small has to grow, and we'll go sliding, sing out Hare Hare, dance the Hoochie Coo. Landscapes of sunlight, rain, starbright, the song remains the same. Guys, if you've enjoyed this series, we gotta thank my dear patrons for their support. They made it happen, and we should give them a round of applause. Now I want you to remember you can join my Patreon site for an exclusive video of a scene-by-scene analysis of The Song Remains the Same movie. Think of it as a director's cut, expanding on all the contents you've seen on these episodes. And again, it will be available only on Patreon. Also, you can support me via PayPal and YouTube Super Chats. Stay tuned for the next destination here on JCM Led Zeppelin Stories, and I hope you spin your copy of The Song Remains the Same soundtrack after watching this video. Bye bye.